been undertaken, can the legal community, including the legal academia, avoid its share of guilt and accountability? When people point out the deplorable standard of ethics on the part of the legal professionals, including judges of the highest court, can law schools say that they have no role in such a development? When others decry the increasing tendency of bright young law graduates who are passing out, particularly from the national law schools, eager to serve the private corporate multinationals, can legal educators offer any viable explanation for this development of ignoring the Aam Aadmi from accessing justice with the help of these law graduates? Does it not imply that such a result is the outcome of a curriculum designed to serve certain purposes? Corporate economy, private investment, things like that. Certain purposes, a certain method of instruction designed to impart the skills necessary for those purposes, merger and acquisition, things like that which are required by the multinational corporate enterprises, including Indian multinationals. Now, if law curriculum is increasingly designed to serve these corporate law subjects, and the law graduates are being absorbed by these corporates, to whom is legal education meant? What role the future legal professionals are going to play in making justice accessible to the toiling millions of India? Therefore, there is an indifference in the part of the law graduates and on the part of the regulators of legal education to the requirement of justice to the common man. In my view, we need urgent constitutionalization of legal education. For those who do not understand what I mean by constitutionalization, what I am asking for is to design a law curriculum, an alternative model of legal education entirely drawn from the text and the philosophy of the Indian Constitution rather than from Harvard or Oxford or Stanford. Not to imitate those models, but what is the object that legal education and legal profession is meant to serve to achieve the constitutional goals, and can we design a curriculum that is relevant to that goal? So therefore, I submit to you that constitutionalization is what is required. That is happening from the court, not so much in legal education. If you look into criminal justice today, though we operate the same Indian Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, what obtains today as the law of criminal justice are the constitutional decisions of the court in respect of arrest, bail, detention, interrogation, identification parade. Everything has been constitutionalized. D.K. Basu, the law of arrest, bail, Husainara Khatun, you name it, any number of decisions. Like that, it has been happening since the adoption of the Constitution. Otherwise, we operate the same set of laws, the same set of codes. But the major difference that happened today is the Constitution. And to the extent that we have been successful to throw constitutional light into all aspects of laws, labor law or family law or whatever, to that extent, Constitution has given meaning and content. But this did not happen in the legal education system. Nor did it happen in the attitude and mindset of lawyers and judges, particularly of the lower courts. Whenever an issue relating to the Constitution is raised in the trial courts, the trial judge would say, well, that point you argue in the High Court or Supreme Court. Why? As if the trial courts are outside the Constitution. The decisions that are given by the constitutional courts are the laws of the land. And that has to be cited and accepted. I am one who believes that the district judiciary particularly the district judge, has to be given constitutional jurisdiction, though in a limited manner. In certain areas, it need not go to the High Court. Why do I say that? Because the district judge is an important judge, to my mind, higher than the High Court. Because he caters justice to a large mass of people who never have any opportunity to reach to the High Court. And he is the first court where justice is given to the people in that district. And he has to give meaningful remedies as the constitutional court is giving. Not merely fine, compensation, imprisonment, things like that. If that has to happen, and the common man has to get the same quality justice as another person who might get from the Supreme Court, then the district judiciary will have to be constitutionalized in terms of its jurisdiction, in terms of its powers, to give appropriate relief to the litigants. Well, be that as it may, so this is the idea of constitutionalization that I am talking about. And I am to make up as to what it means to a law teacher who is designing a curriculum for law teaching. In a sense, the judicial system as it operates today has reinforced the inequalities and iniquities in society. I've used these terms with great care. I'm saying that the judicial system as it operates today has reinforced the inequalities and iniquities in society, despite progressive laws being adopted by way of affirmative action in favor of the disadvantaged sections of society. Foreigners come here and look at the laws affecting women, affecting children, affecting the tribals, and they say your statute book is very rich, very progressive. This doesn't obtain in England, Canada, America. You have made their life as good as anybody in the city, but look at their plight. These are laws in the books, but laws in action that happens in society is far different. That's where justice matters. That's where I would argue that it is not going to be hereafter law education, it has to be justice education. As doctors are concerned with health, not with diseases. Their primary concern is to promote health. Therefore, it is health education, not disease education. Similarly, lawyers who are concerned with justice and not with disputes. Disputes is because the absence of justice. So instead of law education, we ought to be coining the term justice education. Instead of law colleges, it is justice colleges. To change the mindset. Otherwise, we will be studying some death letters in the Penal Code or the Evidence Act, which has no meaning. Only when it is applied to social reality, it assumes some meaning by way of justice or injustice. And if this skill is not, and this skill comes out of not merely understanding law, by an attitude, sensitivity to human suffering. If law colleges cannot develop that sensitivity on its students to human suffering, to revolt against injustice seen anywhere, you are not fit for a lawyer. To be able to develop that, more and more the law school should be engaging with society. Law must be taught in relation to social problems. We don't teach corruption. Who teaches corruption law? Do you have a course of corruption, law of corruption? Which is the single most important problem in India today. And we don't teach corruption. We don't teach terrorism. That is not there in the Indian Penal Code. Where is terrorism an offence? So that is in some special law. We don't teach that. The number one problems of the country today, whether it is communalism or terrorism or atrocities or corruption, is not part of the law school agenda at all. This is where I say that we are becoming less and less socially relevant. So ladies and gentlemen, the attitude of the bar will also have to change. It's not a question of going on strike whenever Parliament brings in a law to change the situation. Look at the way the Indian bar has reacted when Section 89 of the Civil Procedure Code was introduced, or Chapter 21A of the Criminal Procedure Code was introduced. Bar Council called for a strike. Lawyers on strike, they are against mediated settlement of disputes. They are against lok adalats. They are against plea bargaining and settling criminal disputes. Any progressive reform which are designed to mitigate the adversarial litigation and its costly exercises are opposed by the organized bar, because the organized bar is a private monopoly. It loves private enterprise. It is against things which are, Gram Nyayalaya Act. The central government has passed it about 7 years back. The government of India has told all the state governments that if you are introducing the Gram Nyayalayas intended to provide civil and criminal justice in small disputes to the rural litigant, we will pay 100% for the next 5 years. Believe me, none of the state governments have started Gram Nyayalaya, including Maharashtra. Why? Neither lawyers are interested, nor the judges are interested. Oh, you will make your clothes dirty if you go to Gram Nyayalayas. How do you sit with non-law people? And how can you argue without adversarial adjudication? Why do you want to have conciliated settlements? I can't understand. Any progressive reform that the Parliament has brought in have been consistently opposed by the bar, the organized bar, on very silly grounds. This does not show the mindset to provide access to justice and bring about that constitutionalization that I am talking about. The message is that law reform and institutional reform by themselves will not change unless the human beings who are administering these laws through these institutions change. That is where we come to lawyers and judges. If lawyers and judges are of the correct attitude, have that sensitivity to injustice, then whatever be the law, whatever be the procedure in CPC or CRPC, you will find a way out to give relief and remove that injustice. Otherwise, technical decision making. Anybody can make a dispute settlement. But if you want a dispute settlement which maximizes justice in society, you need to look at social realities. You have to be expeditious. You cannot drag on with the rules of evidence. Many of these rules of evidence conceived at the time when England had the Star Chamber practices of torture to extract confession. Today is less and less relevant. I have the authority of no less a person than Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer, who said that the first thing that we should do if you want to provide access to justice to the common people is to throw out the CPC, CRPC and Evidence Act, supposed to be the Bible of every trial lawyer and trial judge.